Alright everyone, let's do this then. The big game is tomorrow, Celtic versus Hibernian Scottish Cup quarter-final. My job for today's video is to get you up for the game, tell you everything you need to know ahead of kick-off. We also had Brendan Rodgers' press conference yesterday, plenty of interesting stuff covered there. Oh, and the VAR audio tapes from Easter Road have been released, unclassified. I'm sure there's going to be a reasonable explanation. Yes, March's edition of the VAR review with Gordon Duncan and Willie Collum has aired, and they opened the show with the most controversial incident of the month, if not the season, our disallowed goal at Easter Road. And a goal that would have earned us a draw. And I think it's fair to say, having watched this, I know a lot of you will have, and don't worry if you've not, I'll talk you through what was said, both in the studio and at the time in the VAR room. But it's fair to say I think that this incident played out kind of like how we all thought it would. So the goal goes in from Dyson Maeda, the equaliser for us to make it 2-2. The on-field decision very quickly is that it's a goal. The ball hadn't gone out of play according to the linesman, who had the best view of anyone, let's be honest. Almost straight away, the VAR, who is Alan Muir, seems to be looking for evidence of the ball having gone out, which just seems a little bit strange to me. But anyway, he says that looks out of play. Would you agree? He says to AVAR Ross McLeod, or Cloudy as he calls him. And to be fair to McLeod, he disagrees with Muir, saying, no, I wouldn't agree, it's inconclusive. I don't think you can conclusively say that's out. They then get this closer angle, and Muir tries again. Would you agree this is out, he says. He seems to be convincing McLeod at this point that the ball has gone out, saying, there, about 4 times. And eventually, it's almost as if he kind of wears McLeod down. And McLeod says, yeah, okay. And then they're on to Stephen McLean, the referee, on the pitch, and it's a factual overturn. So a factual overturn means that it's not a case of McLean going over to the monitor and seeing it for himself and making a decision. I think they call that an on-field review. Factual overturn is basically, it's like the offside stuff. It's just into the referee's ear. The ball was out. You have no wiggle room here. The ball was out. You need to trust us, etc. Now, just going back to that frame, and being totally honest, you might look at that still image and potentially say, yeah, the ball does look like it may have drifted out, just out. But, potentially from that image you would say that. But as we know, these images and camera angles that aren't the definitive camera angle for this kind of thing, which is like above the goal line basically you would need, they can be deceiving. And we got a recent example of that, and I'll just bring it up again. The last World Cup, and actually involving Dyson Maeda, who's one of the Japan players in the left image. And again, a bit like the Alistair Johnson stuff, you would look at that first one and say, right, the ball's out. Like, obviously, look at it. How could that be in? But then you get the actual angle from high up above, which obviously they have access to at World Cups, but we don't in the Scottish Premiership, which again might be an issue you would look at. And a slither of the ball is in play, which means the whole ball is in play. So yeah, just because it looks out from one angle doesn't actually mean that it was. And my takeaway from this, or one of my many takeaways from this incident, maybe like a kind of average football supporter or even sports fan down the pub looking at it would go, okay, that's out. And they maybe wouldn't be aware, because it is a bit of a weird one, the fact that it looks out from one angle. It's almost like an optical illusion. I don't know exactly how that works. I'm not intelligent enough to be able to explain the physics of it to you, but I just know that it can be deceiving. But it's bizarre to me and almost unthinkable to me that like grade 1 officials here, the top officials in Scottish football, don't know this as a concept. They don't know, even though it happened at a very recent World Cup, they don't know that the images can be deceiving. So yeah, strange stuff. Willie Collum, no surprise to say that he thinks the goal should have stood. He says you need 100% evidence here to disallow the goal. And he actually made the exact point that I did shortly after the incident, that if the linesman had said the ball had been out, I don't think VAR could have then gone back and changed the incident, because the issue here isn't whether the ball was in or out. It never really has been that, as much as it maybe was at the start. The issue here is that, like, the only fact here is that nobody can be certain, and we'll never know whether the ball was actually in or out. So the fact we will never know if the ball was in or out makes it wrong that VAR stepped in, because it has to be clear and obvious, and it wasn't a clear and obvious error. So quite simply, it was an awful mistake from Alan Muir that cost us a point at Easter Road. Anyway, we can draw a line under that for good. Back to the present day, well, not quite, because it was yesterday. Brendan Rodgers speaking to the media, and a fair amount of ground to cover, given that we hadn't had a game for a week, and a fair bit's happened off the pitch in terms of certain things. So yeah, he covered a fair lot. He was obviously asked about tomorrow's game and praised Hibs for their upturn in form. They're 15 games unbeaten, actually, since the last time they visited Celtic Park. And predictably, Brendan Rodgers said, good on Hibs for sticking with David Gray and not just firing him when things were tough at the start of the season. And they've clearly reaped the rewards of having done that. He was then keen to point out that the context of tomorrow's game is very different to the last time that we played Hibs at Easter Road. You're likely to remember that game, which we lost, was right off the back of our heartache and heartbreak in Munich, and a game that the players played so well in and put so much into, both physically and emotionally. And it can't have been easy then a few days later to be going away to Easter Road. This time round, one big fact is that the game is at Celtic Park, so that's a huge advantage for us. We've been pretty faultless at home this season. But I think even more than that, the fact the players have had a full week, a free week to prepare for this match and only focus on the game is something that's going to be great for us. And Brendan Rodgers was very keen to point that out. He talked up the big away support that Hibs are going to have, and by the way, Hibs have now officially sold out their full allocation of 7,000 tickets, so the away end is going to be packed. 7,000 Hibs fans. It's going to be amazing atmosphere. Celtic Park pretty much sold out around the rest of the stadium. Only some sections now. I reckon a couple of hundred tickets, if that, available. So it's going to be jam-packed. I reckon it will probably sell out either today or ahead of kick-off on Sunday. Injury-wise, and this is something that I mentioned yesterday, that Liam Scales did take a pretty kind of big bang to the face, actually, for the free kick that was given to St Mirren and that Declan John then stuck into the net. So that was in the first half, and Scales played the rest of the match, but it seems like he's had some kind of ill effects of that and done some damage there. So he's going to be missing for a period of time. X-rays were mentioned there, so I'm guessing it's a fracture. Callum McGregor should be fine for the game. Austin Trusty's had a few stitches. He went off again in the first half, replaced by Liam Scales, so he should be fine. Paulo Bernardo likely to miss certainly this weekend, the derby as well next weekend, but should return after the international break. No word on James Forrest, who's been missing for a hell of a long time. He last played actually in the League Cup final against Rangers, which tells you how long ago that was. So potentially we get him back in the squad this weekend maybe, but he wasn't covered yesterday at all, so we don't know. There were a few laughs too. Brendan Rodgers commented on Jose Mourinho, saying, "I've heard he's taken my job." He then delivered a bit of patter that probably would be more at home coming out of my mouth on this channel, although I don't even know if I've gone to this awful level of patter. I probably have, to be fair. So the question was, so Brendan, do you have a Liam Scales time scale in terms of him returning? Brendan said, "There's a Liam Scales, not a time scale." But I think overall, very relaxed, reading between the lines. I think Brendan Rodgers really fancies this one this weekend, and I know Hibs are in a great run of form, but like Aberdeen were earlier in the season as well, and we got them at Hampden and completely battered them. And I just think with a full free midweek, I think he's actually pretty relaxed. He knows Hibs are a good team in form, but I think he's pretty confident of this Celtic team showing up and winning well tomorrow. It's his 20th Scottish Cup tie as Celtic manager tomorrow. He's won the previous 19, which is a hell of a record. And yeah, we're feeling good about it. Just in terms of the team, it's full strength in terms of the starting 11, I think. So I'm going for Casper Schmeichel in goals, back four of Alistair Johnson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Austin Trusty and Jeff Schlupp. Midfield, Callum McGregor, Arnie Engels, Rayo Hatate. And yeah, front three, Nicholas Kuhn on the right, Jota on the left, Maida through the middle. There's been a little bit of a growing feeling of people wanting Yang to start on the right ahead of Kuhn. I would be surprised if that happens. I think Yang's going to continue to be a bit of a super sub for us. And again, hopefully, I mean, he's clearly going to come into the game on Sunday and can hopefully do well. And I think he'll get some starts between now and the end of the season, but not on Sunday. And I just think this is our strongest team, quite simply. And why change your strongest team at all for such a big game? So I would be quite surprised if this isn't the team, to be honest. And maybe there's an argument Adam Ida could start, but I just think that front three, the way Daizen Maida's playing at the moment through the middle, you've just got to play him there as often as possible. Match officials. The referee is Nick Walsh, assisted by Frank Connor and Colin Drummond. Kevin Clancy is on VAR duties, so yep, hopefully that goes all right. And Andrew McWilliam is the assistant VAR. And yeah, a fair old build-up to this game, but I just sense that Celtic are feeling good and will be ready to peak tomorrow afternoon. I think the game being at Celtic Park is great, and we've been very fortunate this year with the cup draws. I think this is the fifth kind of cup tie we've had, either in the Scottish Cup or League Cup, not including the semi-finals and finals, which are obviously at Hampden, and all five of them have been at Celtic Park. So I don't know what the chances of that are, not to have an away tie at all. But I just think at Celtic Park, we're just so difficult to beat. I mean, no one's really come close this year. Aberdeen were the only team, I think, to stop us winning at Celtic Park. And I think that's a big factor tomorrow. And I could be wrong. Hibs are clearly a good team who we should respect. So they're a team that we know can cause us issues. They've got a lot of really good players, experienced players as well, who probably won't be fazed too much by the atmosphere. But I just think at Scottish football level, like if we want it and are anywhere near the top of our game, which I think we will be, I just don't think any team comes anywhere close to us. Like, we've just got so much more quality than even teams like Hibs on a really kind of good day for them. We just have so much quality. I mean, you look at how we played at Easter Road and how well they played, and the fact it was off the back of Munich and all that stuff, and we still should have got a draw from that game the way we played in the second half. So I just think having a full week to prepare for the game, something Brendan Rodgers keeps pointing out, the game at Celtic Park, it's going to have a big game feel as well. Like, the atmosphere is going to be cracking. I think 7,000 Hibs fans, the rest of the stadium packed. I think it'll feel not quite like an old derby, because the atmosphere won't quite be as good as that, but it'll certainly be, I think it'll be the loudest Celtic Park's been for a domestic game all season, and I include the first derby of the season. Like, I think it'll be proper packed and kind of rocking before kick-off tomorrow, just because of the importance of the match, the fact it's up against a team in a 15-game winning run, and the fact they're going to have so many sections of support in the away end. And I just think that when things are like that and the stakes are high, this Celtic team rises to it, while other teams, and we all know who I'm talking about, are fazed by the pressure, and they only really seem to do well when they're not expected to do well, like on Thursday nights. I think this Celtic team is locked in and zoned in on the task at hand, and the task at hand is to get back to Hampden. So yeah, I'm not saying we're going to batter them 6-0 like we did with Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup earlier in the season, and I'm well aware Aberdeen got a draw with us a few games prior to that. But it just feels to me, I just feel really confident that Celtic are going to fancy this, and I think we'll beat Hibs by a few. I'm saying I don't think it's going to be 6-0. My official prediction, everyone, and get ready for this, is Celtic 5, Hibernian 1. So let's see if that plays out. Regardless, I hope you enjoy watching the game. If you're going, make loads of noise and really get behind the team. If, like me, you're watching elsewhere, then enjoy yourself as well. And fingers crossed we can get through to Hampden. I will return Monday morning for you all, looking back in the game with some friends. I'll speak to you all then.